Michigan, 11 days after Halloween. Krista Robin Lueth kisses her cat goodbye and leaves for her evening plant science class at Michigan State University. She never got there. Inside her apartment, police found dinner still warm on the stove and her cat waiting by the door. Everything looked normal except for one thing. Krista was gone. Days later, searchers find her driver's license and broken cell phone pieces scattered along U.S. Highway 127. Police look closely at one man, her ex-boyfriend Brad Cournaya. His car broke down on that same road that night. But Brad's story hid something much darker than a coincidence. A violent past, a bunch of lies and secrets that would take 15 years to figure out. Finally, in 2023, something amazing happened. A Michigan jury said guilty. This is the story of an important conviction and the question it left behind. How do you find peace when the victim's body has never been found? Before we continue this shocking story, take a second to hit subscribe and like this video. Your support helps bring these forgotten stories to light, and the algorithm gods will make sure you don't miss any future uploads. The November wind cuts through Lansing like a knife, carrying the smell of dying leaves and winter coming. Krista Robin Lueth adjusts her jacket as she steps out of her apartment building, keys jingling in her hand. At 34, she moves with the quiet confidence of someone who has found her purpose. Her love for plant science fills every corner of her life, from the small herb garden on her windowsill to the greenhouse where she spends her evenings studying plant genetics. Her apartment on Michigan Avenue tells the story of a woman building something meaningful. Books about growing plants are stacked beside her computer. Photos of family gatherings line the walls. Her tabby cat, Whiskers, follows her to the door with the loyalty only animals can give. "I'll be back by 10, she tells him, scratching behind his ears. "Don't knock over my jade plant while I'm gone." The stove holds her half-finished dinner, pasta with marinara sauce, still warm. She'd planned to eat when she returned from class. The routine comforts her. Tuesday evenings at the greenhouse, surrounded by growing things and the possibility of discovery. Her cell phone buzzes. Brad Cournaya's name appears on the screen. She pauses before answering. Their relationship ended months ago, but he still calls sometimes. Drunk, always needy. Krista opens the call with careful reserve. "Hey, Brad." Brad's voice is urgent and strained on the line. "Thank God. My car broke down on a 127. I'm stuck near the Lansing exit. Can you help me?" She checks her watch. "Class starts in 40 minutes, Krista asks, her tone strictly business. "What happened?" "Engine just died." "I think it's the alternator," Brad pleads. "I know you're busy, but I don't have anyone else to call." The desperation in his voice makes her chest tight. Despite everything, some part of her still feels responsible for his problems. It's a weakness she can't quite shake. "Okay, I'll swing by on my way to class," Krista agrees, setting a strict boundary. "But I can't be late, Brad. This presentation is important. You're a lifesaver." "I'm on the shoulder near mile marker 85. The line goes dead. Krista stares at her phone for a moment. That familiar knot forms in her stomach. Every interaction with Brad feels like walking through a minefield. She grabs her purse and heads for the door. Whiskers meows in protest. "I know, buddy, I don't like it either." Her Toyota Corolla starts on the second try, reliable as always. She pulls onto Michigan Avenue, then merges onto US 127 southbound. She passes familiar landmarks. Mile marker 83. Mile marker 84. Her headlights sweep across the shoulder ahead looking for Brad's broken-down Ford. She slows, squinting through the darkness. Mile marker 85. Nothing. Krista pulls over and checks her phone. No missed calls. No messages. She dials Brad's number. It rings once, twice, then goes to voicemail. Krista leaves a frustrated message. "Brad, it's me. I'm at mile marker 85 and I don't see you. Call me back." 5 minutes pass, then 10. Her presentation starts in 20 minutes. She tries his number again. Voicemail frustration bubbles up from her chest. This is exactly the kind of thing Brad does. Create drama, demand attention, then disappear. She pulls back onto the highway and heads toward campus. But something else happens on that dark stretch of highway. In those missing minutes, in that empty space where Brad should have been waiting, Krista Robin Lueth vanishes from the world. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below. I'm always fascinated to see how far these stories travel and how they connect us across distances. Her car is found the next morning in the greenhouse parking lot. Keys still in the ignition. Her presentation materials wait on the dashboard. carefully organized and never delivered. The discovery shows the sudden, violent interruption of her life. Dawn breaks gray and cold over Lansing. Jennifer Walsh, Krista's roommate, paces the kitchen with growing alarm. "This isn't like her," Jennifer tells the police dispatcher, her voice strained. "Krista doesn't just disappear. She would have called. She would have come home." Officer David Chen of the Lansing Police Department arrives and looks at the apartment. "Everything suggests interrupted routine. When did you last see her?" Officer Chen asked Jennifer directly. "Around 7 yesterday evening. She was heading to her plant science class," Jennifer replies, her voice cracking. "She goes every Tuesday night. She loves those plants more than anything. She would never miss class unless something was seriously wrong." Chen calls for a supervisor. Within hours, the apartment becomes a crime scene. Michigan State Police Detective Maria Santos arrives as the sun climbs higher. She's worked missing persons long enough to recognize the difference between someone leaving on purpose and something darker. "Tell me about her relationships," Santos asks Jennifer, her tone professional and steady. "Boyfriend? Ex-boyfriend? Anyone who might want to hurt her?" Jennifer's face darkens. "Brad Cournaya. They dated for about 6 months last year. He was intense, possessive. She broke it off when he started getting violent." Santos leans forward slightly. "Violent how?" "He grabbed her once during an argument. Left bruises on her arms," Jennifer recalls with chilling clarity. "After that, she was done. But he kept calling, kept showing up places she was. She was scared of him." Santos makes notes. "The pattern feels familiar. Do you know where we can find him?" she asks, not looking up from her pad. Jennifer pauses, thinking. "He lives in a trailer park off Cedar Street. Krista said he was always getting in trouble with the law." While Santos interviews Jennifer, other MSP officers check the greenhouse. Professor Helen Wilson confirms that Krista never arrived for class, adding, "She's my most dedicated student. Never missed a session in 2 years." Traffic cameras capture her Toyota leaving her complex at 7:15 p.m. After that, the digital trail goes cold. By Thursday morning, volunteers begin gathering at the Lansing Police Department as Krista's disappearance spreads through social media and local news. Detective Santos drives to the Cedar Street trailer park. Brad's trailer sits empty. A neighbor comes out from the next trailer. "You looking for Brad?" the neighbor asks. "He ain't been around since Tuesday night." "Tuesday night? You sure about that?" Santos presses, her pulse quickening. "Yeah. Saw him leave around 6:30. Driving that piece of junk Ford. Engine was making terrible noises. Tuesday night. The same night Krista disappeared." Santos leaves her card and returns to the station. That afternoon brings the first breakthrough. A driver calls to report finding a driver's license on the shoulder of US 127 near mile marker 85. The name on the license? Krista Robin Lueth. Santos and Eaton County Sheriff's deputies race to the location. The license lies in tall grass as if thrown from a moving vehicle. Nearby, they discover more debris, fragments of a cell phone scattered like broken promises. The phone is damaged but can be fixed. Its recovered call log shows that final call to Brad Cournaya at 7:23 p.m., lasting 2 minutes and 15 seconds. It was the last time anyone would hear her voice. The pieces fall into place with terrible clarity. "She came out here to help him," Santos concludes, her voice flat. Just like he asked. "Where is she now?" Santos stares at the empty highway. "That's what we need to find out." Brad Cournaya becomes the main suspect. His trailer sits empty. His Ford is nowhere to be found. He's vanished as completely as Krista, but on purpose. On Friday, Santos gets a call that changes everything. A state trooper has found Brad's abandoned Ford in a rest area near Grand Rapids, 60 miles from Lansing. The car shows signs of mechanical failure, a blown alternator just as he'd claimed to Krista. But inside the vehicle, investigators discover something that makes Santos's blood run cold. Krista's purse hidden under the driver's seat. Her wallet intact, money untouched. A small framed photograph of her and Whiskers tucked in the side pocket. The purse transforms the case from missing person to probable murder. Santos spends the weekend looking into Brad Cournaya's criminal history. What she found made her sick. Multiple arrests for sexual assault, including the rape of a teenager in 2003. Convictions for child abuse that sent him to prison for 18 months, and failure to register as a sex offender, a violation that should have kept him behind bars. "This guy's a predator," Santos tells her lieutenant, her voice low with disgust. And somehow he slipped through the cracks. The lieutenant's response is immediate and blunt. "Find him before he hurts someone else." But Brad has disappeared into the American underground of trailer parks, cash jobs, and fake names. The search spreads across 3 states, aided by wanted posters and media attention. Meanwhile, Lansing grieves. Krista's friends organize candlelight vigils at the greenhouse, the place where she spent her happiest hours. Her plants wait in their pots, carefully tended by Professor Wilson, and a team of volunteers who refuse to let them die. Jennifer keeps the apartment exactly as Krista left it, unable to accept that her roommate won't walk through the door with an apologetic smile. Whiskers sleeps on Krista's bed every night, waiting for a return that will never come. The search for Krista's body begins. Ground teams comb the forests along US 127. Cadaver dogs work the areas near where her license was found. Divers search ponds and quarries within a 50-mile radius. They find nothing. November becomes December, and winter settles over Michigan like a burial shroud. The searches grow more difficult as snow covers potential grave sites. The media attention fades. The volunteers drift back to their normal lives, but Krista's family refuses to give up. Her mother, Patricia, drives from Detroit every weekend to meet with investigators. Her brother, James, posts missing person flyers throughout mid-Michigan. They appear on local television, pleading for information. "Someone knows what happened to our daughter," Patricia says during a tearful December news conference. "Someone saw something. Someone knows where she is. Please, we're begging you. Help us bring Krista home." The holidays pass in a fog of grief and desperate hope. Christmas comes and goes with an empty chair at the family table. New Year's Eve finds Patricia sitting in Krista's apartment, holding whiskers and staring at the cold stove where dinner still sits, now molded and forgotten. Detective Santos works through the holidays, following leads that go nowhere. Anonymous tips from psychics, false sightings from people who mistake other women for the missing plant scientist, dead ends that mock the investigation's urgency. In January, the case officially goes cold. Santos is assigned to new investigations, though she checks Brad Cournaya's name in the database every morning. He remains a ghost, disappeared as thoroughly as if the earth had swallowed him. The first anniversary of Krista's disappearance brings renewed media attention and another round of searches. Volunteers return to comb areas missed during winter. New tips trickle in, each one carefully investigated and ultimately dismissed. A $50,000 reward is offered for information leading to Brad's arrest. Spring arrives with cruel beauty. Krista's plants in the greenhouse bloom and grow, tended by students who never knew her but who understand the importance of keeping something alive in her memory. Her research is published after her death. Detective Santos is promoted to sergeant within the Michigan State Police, but continues working Krista's case whenever possible. She interviews Brad's former friends, searches social media, and tracks every rumor of his whereabouts. In September, almost a year after the disappearance, Santos gets a break. A tip from Cleveland leads to an arrest. Not Brad, but a man who claims to know where he's hiding. The informant, a drug dealer named Tony Reese, tells a story that makes Santos's heart race. Reese met Brad at an Ohio truck stop 3 months after Krista vanished. Brad was drunk and paranoid, talking about the girl from Lansing and how they'll never find her. He said he put her somewhere they'd never look, Reese tells investigators. Somewhere special, he called it. Somewhere that meant something to him. Santos and her team immediately begin researching locations connected to Brad's past. His childhood home, construction jobs, properties owned by relatives. They find nothing. The second anniversary brings another vigil, smaller but no less determined. Krista's family has aged visibly, worn down by 2 years of false hopes. "We will find her," James tells the gathered crowd, his voice raw with resolve. "We will bring our sister home, and we will make sure Brad Cournaya pays for what he did." Behind the scenes, prosecutors quietly begin the difficult task of building a case without a body. Juries typically demand physical remains, but the indirect evidence against Brad grows stronger with every passing month. The prosecution's legal strategy starts to take clear shape, focusing on the totality of evidence. This includes cell phone records that place Brad in the exact highway area where Krista's license was later discovered. Motive and desperation established through witness statements of Brad's severe money problems and his criminal history, which established a chilling pattern of violence against women. The case would argue that this evidence proved not just that Krista was dead, but that Brad killed her with planning. The calculated phone call to lure her, the staged car trouble, and the deliberate disposal of her purse and phone to cover his tracks. But first, the priority remains unchanged. They need Brad in custody. 3 years pass like water through a strainer, bringing new pain and old hopes. Sergeant Santos has worked dozens of cases, but Krista's photograph still sits prominently on her desk, a daily reminder of unfinished business. Brad Cournaya remains a phantom. His name is whispered in trailer parks and dive bars across the Midwest. Sightings come from Florida, Texas, Oregon, always just out of reach. In 2012, the case receives new attention when a documentary filmmaker approaches Krista's family. The resulting film, Finding Krista, airs on the Investigation Discovery Network and generates hundreds of new tips. Most lead nowhere, but one catches Santos's attention. A woman in Tennessee claims her neighbor matches Brad's description. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation conducts surveillance for 2 weeks before determining it's a false lead. Each false lead feels like a small death to Krista's family. Patricia has retired from her job to focus full-time on finding her daughter. James has divorced, unable to balance his obsession with the case and his marriage. The greenhouse at Michigan State has been renamed the Krista Lewis Memorial Greenhouse. Her plants have been replaced by memorial displays, but her research lives on through graduate students who continue her work on sustainable agriculture. Professor Wilson retires in 2013, but not before establishing the Krista Lewis Scholarship for Women Studying Plant Science. Krista saw the world through the eyes of someone who understood that every living thing has purpose. Wilson tells the gathered crowd at the dedication ceremony, her work on drought-resistant crops could have fed thousands. Her murder robbed not just her family but humanity itself. The word murder hangs in the air like smoke. In 2014, the Michigan State Police assigns a new detective to review cold cases. MSP Detective Robert King approaches Krista's file with fresh eyes. Modern cell phone tower data from 2008, previously too expensive to analyze, now reveals a more detailed picture of that November night. Brad's phone pinged towers in a pattern consistent with driving south on US 127, then disappearing for 3 hours before reappearing near Grand Rapids. Those missing 3 hours represent the time when Krista died and was buried. King orders ground-penetrating radar searches of properties along Brad's likely route. The technology has improved dramatically since 2008. The searches turn up nothing, but hope keeps the case alive in the public mind. Local newspapers run anniversary stories. Social media groups dedicated to finding Krista gain thousands of followers. In 2016, genetic genealogy emerges as a powerful tool in cold cases. Though investigators have no DNA evidence linking Brad to the disappearance, they begin building detailed family trees for both victim and suspect, hoping to find missed connections. The work is painstaking and ultimately fruitless. The families have no known connections. Meanwhile, Brad's trail grows colder. His mother, his only remaining close relative, dies in 2015. Detective King interviews every person on that shrinking list. Former cellmates, drinking buddies, construction supervisors who paid Brad under the table. The portrait that emerges is of a man consumed by rage and paranoia, capable of extreme violence when cornered. He talked about women like they were objects, one former friend tells King. Said they existed to serve men, and any woman who fought back deserved what she got. He scared the hell out of me, and I'm not easily scared. The interviews reveal something else troubling, a pattern of increasing violence. Multiple women report being attacked or threatened by Brad in the years before Krista's disappearance, but none reported the incidents to police. Krista wasn't his first victim, but investigators suspect she may have been the one who fought back too hard. In 2017, advances in cell phone technology allow investigators to recover deleted text messages from Krista's damaged phone. The messages paint a disturbing picture of her final weeks. Brad had been stalking her, showing up at her workplace, following her to class, and calling her dozens of times daily. The texts reveal Krista's growing fear and frustration. "Please leave me alone," she wrote 2 days before her disappearance. "I don't want to see you anymore. Stop calling." Brad's responses went from begging to outright threatening. The final message, sent on the morning of November 11th, chills investigators to the bone. "You can't hide from me. Forever." Detective King presents the new evidence to the prosecutor's office in early 2018. The case for murder without a body grows stronger with each piece of the puzzle, but District Attorney Margaret Walsh remains hesitant. Juries want to see bodies, Walsh tells King during a strategy meeting. They want physical proof of death. Everything we have is circumstantial. It's overwhelming circumstantial evidence, King argues. No one disappears this completely without help. She's dead and Brad killed her. Walsh agrees to keep building the case, but she won't commit to prosecution without more evidence. The investigation continues, now in its 10th year. The 2018 anniversary vigil draws the largest crowd since the first year. Krista's story resonates in the era of Me Too, another example of male violence against women going unpunished. Patricia Lewis, now visibly frail but still determined, addresses the crowd with words that would be quoted for years. My daughter is not just a statistic. She is not just another missing woman. She is Krista Robin Lueth and she matters. Her life mattered. Her death matters. And someday, somehow, we will get justice. 3 weeks later, Detective King gets a call that changes everything. A man in Arizona, Michael Sutton, claims to be Brad Cournaya's cousin and has information about what happened to Krista. He was drunk at the funeral reception, Sutton tells King over the phone. Started rambling about some girl who wouldn't leave him alone. Said he had to shut her up permanently, or she would ruin his life. The cousin's story remains consistent, providing the strongest evidence yet of Brad's guilt, but still no clue to his whereabouts or Krista's burial site. In 2019, the case gains another boost when the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit offers to create a detailed profile. FBI agent Sarah Coleman, specializing in missing persons, spends weeks studying Brad's history and psychology. He's not smart enough for complicated body disposal, Coleman advises the investigative team. He would have buried her quickly, probably within an hour of death. The location would be somewhere he knew well, somewhere he'd been before. The profile leads investigators back to Brad's childhood hangouts in rural Ingham County. His grandfather's abandoned farm becomes a focus. Ground-penetrating radar reveals strange spots, but digging turns up only animal remains and old fence posts. By 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic puts many cold case investigations on hold. The isolation gives Detective King time to think differently. He begins mapping every location associated with Brad's life. The map reveals a pattern. Most of Brad's known activities cluster around a 15-mile radius south of Lansing. Within that circle lie dozens of potential burial sites. Meanwhile, Prosecutor Margaret Walsh is replaced by a younger, more aggressive district attorney named David Chen, the same David Chen who, as a police officer, responded to Krista's apartment 13 years earlier. Chen runs for office partly on a platform of solving cold cases. One of his first acts as DA is to call a grand jury to review the evidence against Brad Cournaya. The grand jury meets for 3 days in March 2021. They hear testimony, review phone records, and examine Brad's criminal history. On March 18, 2021, nearly 13 years after Krista's disappearance, the grand jury returns charges against Brad Cournaya for first-degree premeditated murder. The news hits Lansing like a thunderbolt. Patricia Lewis collapses in tears when Detective King calls with the news. Finally, Patricia whispers. Finally, someone will pay for what they did to my baby. The charges are only the first step. The renewed manhunt begins immediately. Brad's photo appears on wanted posters across the country. The FBI adds him to their most wanted list, and the reward increases to $100,000. Tips begin pouring in from across America, clustering around areas with large populations of traveling workers, agricultural regions, oil fields, and construction boom towns. He's probably using a fake name doing day labor for cash, King tells the task force. He could be anywhere, working any job that doesn't require background checks. The search continues through the summer of 2021. In September 2021, 18 months after the charges, investigators get the call they'd been waiting for. Brad Cournaya has been arrested in Pueblo, Colorado, living under the name Robert Carson and working construction for a local contractor. The arrest is anticlimactic. No high-speed chase. No dramatic confrontation. Just a routine traffic stop that turns into the end of one of Michigan's longest-running manhunts. Brad has aged badly during his years on the run. His hair is gray. His face is lined and weathered. He weighs 50 pounds less than his 2008 mugshot, hollowed out by years of paranoia. When Colorado State Police tell him about the Michigan warrant, he doesn't seem surprised. The extradition process takes 2 months. Brad fights it initially, then surrenders. On December 15, 2021, he lands at Lansing Airport in shackles. Detective King watches from the observation deck. After 13 years of hunting this man, he expected satisfaction. Instead, he feels only sadness for what could have been prevented. Brad's first court appearance draws a packed gallery. Krista's family sits in the front row. Patricia stares at the man, trying to understand how this broken shell destroyed her world. The judge denies bail, citing Brad's history of running and the severity of the charges. He is sent to the Ingham County Jail to await a trial scheduled for June 2023. The 18-month gap between arrest and trial gives prosecutors time to build their case carefully. Every piece of evidence has to be perfect. There would be no second chances. June 5, 2023. The Ingham County Courthouse buzzes with energy. News crews set up cameras on the steps. Krista Robin Lueth's family arrives early, dressed in their best clothes. Patricia walks with a cane, her health damaged by 15 years of stress and grief. James supports her arm through the crowds. District Attorney David Chen spent months preparing for this moment. His prosecution team includes Detective King, now retired but serving as a consultant, and FBI analyst Sarah Coleman. The defense, led by veteran criminal defender Amanda Torres, faces an uphill battle. Their strategy centers on the oldest principle in criminal law: no body, no crime. Jury selection takes 3 days. Brad sits at the defense table in a rumpled suit, his hands cuffed to a chain. He rarely looks at Krista's family, keeping his eyes fixed on the table. On June 8th, the gallery falls silent as Chen rises to deliver his opening statement. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Chen begins, his voice quiet but commanding. "This case is about a phone call made on November 11, 2008, that lured Krista Robin Lueth to her death." He moves with quiet confidence. The defendant called Krista at 7:23 p.m., claiming his car had broken down. He knew she was kind. He knew she would come help even though their relationship had ended. He used her compassion against her. Chen outlines the evidence carefully, then his voice rising with power, he challenges the jury. "The defense will tell you that without a body, you can't be certain Krista is dead. But ask yourselves this: where is Krista Robin Lueth? Why did she abandon her cat, her plants, her research, her family who loved her? The only answer that makes sense is the truth. She's dead and the defendant killed her." Amanda Torres approaches the jury with a different manner, skeptical, questioning, focused on doubt. "The prosecution wants you to convict my client of murder based on assumptions, theories, and coincidences," Torres counters. "But this is America, and in America we don't convict people of murder without proof." Torres offers alternative explanations. Maybe Krista staged her own disappearance. Maybe someone else killed her after she left Brad's location. The prosecution has spent 15 years trying to make these puzzle pieces fit together, but they don't. There are too many gaps, too many unknowns. And in a murder case, unknown means not guilty. The prosecution's case unfolds over 8 days of testimony. MSP Lieutenant Maria Santos takes the stand first, walking the jury through the initial investigation. Krista's apartment told a story, Santos testifies, her voice steady. Food still warm on the stove. Her cat hungry and upset. Everything indicated a woman who intended to return home that night. Under cross-examination, Torres presses Santos about the lack of physical evidence at the apartment. "You searched that apartment thoroughly, didn't you, Detective?" "Yes, we did," Santos confirms. Torres delivers her key point, her voice dropping slightly. "And you found no evidence that any crime took place there?" "That's correct," Santos acknowledges, her tone unwavering. "We believe the crime occurred on Highway 127. Torres continues to press. "But you don't know that, do you?" "You're guessing." Santos keeps her composure. "Based on where we found her license and phone, yes. I believe that's where she was killed." Jennifer Walsh, Krista's former roommate, testifies about Krista's reluctance to go. She didn't want to go, but she felt guilty. Krista always felt responsible for other people's problems, especially Brad's. The phone records expert details the technical evidence. The final call lasted 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Cell tower data places both phones at mile marker 85 on US 127 between 7:30 and 7:45 p.m. After 7:45, Krista's phone goes silent forever. Brad's phone reappears near Grand Rapids around 11 p.m. The evidence from Brad's abandoned car provides some of the most damning testimony. Krista's purse containing her wallet, keys and personal items, things no woman would willingly abandon, was found hidden under the driver's seat. FBI behavioral analyst Sarah Coleman explains Brad's profile. Men, like the defendant, often kill their ex-partners when they feel they're losing control. Coleman explains to the jury. They view the woman as property that belongs to them. Torres attacks the profile on cross-examination. You never met my client, did you, Dr. Coleman? No, I did not, Coleman replies. You never interviewed him or conducted any psychological evaluation? Torres presses, her voice demanding certainty. No, but I reviewed extensive evidence about his behavior patterns. Coleman responds firmly. Torres delivers her final devastating strike, her voice rising with righteous anger. So this profile is based on assumption and theory, not direct observation, Dr. Coleman? You are asking this jury to convict a man of murder based purely on a well-researched opinion, a sophisticated hunch. Isn't that correct? A visible flicker of strain crosses Coleman's face, but she holds her composure, looking directly at the jury. It's based on established patterns of behavior in similar cases. A blueprint of violence. It explains why the defendant acted when the physical evidence only shows what he did. Torres simply stares at the witness for a long, silent beat, then turns and returns to the defense table, allowing the silence to hang over the courtroom like a heavy weight. The prosecution's final witness is Detective King, whose testimony spans 2 full days, covering the 15-year manhunt and the mountain of evidence. King's voice breaks slightly when he discusses the impact on Krista's family. They never gave up hope, never stopped fighting for their daughter. King states, his emotion clear. They deserved answers and they deserved justice. Under cross-examination, Torres focuses on the investigation's failures, the lack of physical evidence, the inability to find Krista's body, and the 13-year delay in bringing charges. Detective King, in 15 years of investigation, you never found a single drop of Krista's blood, did you? Torres demands. No, King answers. She continues pressing hard on the physical gaps. You never found DNA evidence linking my client to any crime? No. You never found the alleged murder weapon? No. Torres pauses for maximum effect. In fact, you don't even know how Krista allegedly died, do you? King pauses before answering, acknowledging the factual difficulty. No, we don't know the specific cause of death. The prosecution rests its case on June 19th. The evidence fills dozens of boxes, but at its center lies an absence, Krista Robin Lueth herself. The defense case begins immediately. Torres calls only 3 witnesses, focusing strictly on creating doubt. A private investigator testifies about missing person cases where individuals vanished on purpose, suggesting Krista could still be alive. However, under prosecution cross-examination, the investigator admits his testimony is purely theoretical, and he has found no evidence that Krista disappeared on purpose. The defense's second witness, a forensic expert, questions the cell phone evidence, suggesting the damaged phone could have been tossed by someone other than Brad. But the expert's credibility collapses when Chen reveals he'd been paid $50,000 for his testimony and lacks specific expertise in cell phone forensics. Brad's sister takes the stand as the final defense witness. Through tears, she portrays him as troubled but not violent. He couldn't hurt anyone, she pleads to the jury. He's just weak and scared. Under cross-examination, Chen forces her to admit she hasn't spoken to Brad in over a decade and knows nothing about his relationship with Krista. Torres considers putting Brad on the stand, but ultimately decides against it. The defense rests after just 2 days of testimony. Closing arguments begin on June 22nd. Chen speaks first, summarizing the prosecution's case with passion and precision. Ladies and gentlemen, Chen asserts, this case is about a predator who couldn't accept that his relationship was over. Brad Cournaya used Krista's kindness against her, luring her to an isolated location where he killed her and disposed of her body. Chen walks through the evidence chronologically, forming an unbreakable chain of guilt. The defense wants you to believe Krista voluntarily disappeared, But ask yourselves, what kind of woman abandons a cat she adored? What kind of daughter causes her family 15 years of agony without sending a single word? Chen's voice rises with powerful emotion. Krista Robin Lueth was murdered on November 11, 2008. The evidence proves it beyond any reasonable doubt. The only question left is whether you'll give her family the justice they've waited 15 years to receive. Torres delivers a passionate defense closing, emphasizing the lack of physical evidence and the dangers of convicting based on suspicion. The prosecution has painted a compelling story. But stories aren't evidence, Torres declares. They've asked you to fill in gaps with assumptions, to ignore reasonable doubt in favor of closure. She concludes with a direct appeal. If you have any doubt at all, you must find my client not guilty. That's not just the law, that's justice. Chen delivers the prosecution's rebuttal, arguing, the defense talks about reasonable doubt, but there's nothing reasonable about ignoring overwhelming evidence. Every piece of evidence points to one conclusion. Brad Cournaya murdered Krista Robin Lueth. The jury receives their instructions on June 23rd and begins deliberations. Krista's family waits in the victim services office. Hours pass with no word. Deliberations continue into the next day. On the afternoon of June 24th, word spreads. A verdict has been reached. The gallery fills quickly. Brad sits at the defense table looking pale and defeated, his hands shaking. Krista's family occupies the front row, holding hands. Judge Martinez calls the court to order. Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreman, a middle-aged accountant, stands slowly. The bailiff delivers the verdict to Judge Martinez, who reads it silently. The seconds stretch like hours. Will the defendant please rise? Brad stands unsteadily, supported by his attorneys. His face is gray as ash. Members of the jury, how do you find? The foreman's voice carries clearly through the silent courtroom. We find the defendant, Brad Cournaya, guilty of murder in the first degree. The word guilty hits the courtroom like a physical force. Patricia collapses into James's arms, sobbing. 15 years of grief and relief pouring out. Brad sinks back into his chair, showing no visible reaction. The decision was unanimous. Sentencing is scheduled for September 15th. The courthouse steps become a scene of celebration. Patricia Lueth addresses the media. Today, justice was finally served for our daughter. Krista can rest in peace knowing her killer will never hurt anyone else. But she acknowledges the partial victory. We still don't know where Krista is buried. Our fight isn't over until we bring our daughter home. The conviction reinvigorates the hunt for her remains. In October 2023, 6 weeks after sentencing, investigators receive a tip from a prison inmate claiming Brad told him about burying the girl near a hunting cabin in Shiawassee County. The intensive 2-week search involves dozens of officers and digging equipment. It finds nothing. The tip is false, a reminder that the case isn't truly closed. Winter arrives early in Michigan. The hunt for Krista's remains enters its 16th year. At Thanksgiving 2023, Patricia gathers her family around a table that still has an empty chair. They say grace for justice served, but pray for the day they can finally lay Krista to rest. The Krista Lueth Memorial Greenhouse continues her research. James has remarried and started the Krista Lueth Foundation to help families of missing persons. Detective King, now in his 70s, still drives the back roads of mid-Michigan looking for signs of disturbed earth. A personal mission. A promise to a victim he never knew. On the 15th anniversary of Krista's disappearance, November 11, 2023, Patricia is at the Memorial Greenhouse, as she has been every year. We miss you every day, baby girl, she whispers to Krista's photograph. But we got him. Life continues as Krista would have wanted. Outside the greenhouse, snow begins to fall on Lansing. Somewhere beneath that same snow, in a place known only to Brad Cournaya and perhaps God, Krista Robin Lueth waits to be found. Her killer sits in a prison cell, beginning his first winter of many behind bars. He maintains his innocence, but the truth is written in phone records and burial sites, in the tears of a family that never stopped fighting for justice. The case that captivated Michigan for 15 years is officially closed. Justice has been served, even without a body to bury. Yet Patricia Lueth continues to search, driven by a mother's love and an unquenched hope that someday, somehow her daughter will come home. Until that day arrives, Krista's story remains unfinished. Thanks for being here and listening. Don't forget to hit the bell for our latest stories. Stay safe and take care with your loved ones.